Greetings in the name of Yahusha HaMashiach, Melech of Yasharal, Kahan forever according to the order of Melchizedek, all esteem, honor, and glory unto our Lua Yahuwah. This is MELEK SHALAMAH Trading, and I'm going to do a trade recap I did here on the ES futures, and this was in the ETH from yesterday. So today is actually the 10th of June 2025. It's 1:47 p.m. So this happened in the ETH yesterday, which was the 9th. So before I start, let's play this risk disclosure.
General disclosure. All MELEK SHALAMAH Trading LLC materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure. Trading futures, equities, and digital currencies involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
All right, so that was the risk disclosure. We're going to jump into the higher time frame on TradingView. This is the 4-hour chart of the ES. And what I have here is a reaccumulation structure, right? So from a Wycoff theory perspective, I'm looking at this as a reaccumulation. And what we're supposed to get in this reaccumulation at this point, after the uptrust is created, the uptrust action is created here at 60.41.25, right? So after this is created, which the uptrust action is basically a push above the automatic rally, which is at 6008.50, right? So we have the selling climax at 57.56.50. We push up, we create the automatic rally at 60.08.50. Then we come back down, we create the secondary test at 58.54.25. We push back up, we create the uptrust action, which is the break above automatic rally at 60.41.25. And at this point, the Wycoff theory in a reaccumulation structure is suggesting, or does suggest, that we should start moving back down into the structure, right? So with that thesis in mind, I'm basically looking for shorts or the Black Sun strategy distribution structures on a lower time frame, right? So let's see here. Let's get into the heat map. And right now, 1 second, I have something, an alarm going off, or an alert, sorry. And this is probably this right here. Yes. All right, let me take that off for a second there, and so I could have some clarity while I'm narrating my trade. All right, so this is the ETH open here at 1800 hours. We consolidated, and this is Eastern time. So we consolidated, we had this big push up, buyers take it to the upside, and we create this this uptrust, this buying climax here, but it is the uptrust action as well, right? So let me just relabel this 60.41.25. Well, actually, at the time it was 60.40.75 or 60.40.25. But anyway, we created this buying climax here, right? We have 525 buy sweeps. We have 493 selling absorbers, selling absorption indicator. This is suggesting that buyers were absorbed by the sellers, 493, 496, right? So we're going to open this up a little bit. Right, so we have heavy liquidity on the offer, right? Above price, above the buying climax. We get absorbed by this liquidity right here. Buyers hit this liquidity, and we stall out right there. Right, so we create that high right there at 60.40.25, I believe it was, right? So we start pushing down, we get sellers coming in, we have iceberg sellers here, and we have buy stops, we have buy sweep 634. So all of this is indicating that prices is going to rotate to the downside, right? Buy sweeps, possible rotation to the downside, liquidity on the offer, buying exhaustion, heavy volume, and we're at the upper deviation bands, right? So actually I have to make an adjustment here. Hold on 1 second. We're going to take these off, and we're going to use the ETH bands, right? So I'll just let that populate for a second because the distribution happened at the first upper deviation, so I just want to point out that as well. So let me just let that populate for a second. But in the meantime, I'm gonna, all right, so there they are, right? So this is +2 upper deviation or second upper deviation, that dashed yellow line right there. That's where we have the buying climax running into this level, and we get the first pullback. This is the first upper deviation, and we start consolidating around there, right? So let's open this up a little bit. Right, so after we sell off a little bit, we have a little retest. This is like, it's just a second test. Basically, it's the same buying climax happening. This is the liquidity there again. We run into that liquidity. When we get this low here, this is the automatic reaction, right? So that's the automatic reaction right there. Or we could say this is the automatic reaction, right? The first initial pullback, that sets the low of the range, right? So these little breaks below the low of the range, that's signs of weakness or minor signs of weakness, right? So I took a trade here. This isn't a good trade, and I keep doing this. I'm not waiting for the retest, right? We need the retest at the highs to enter these trades. I'm not supposed to enter these trades at the lows of these structures, right? So, or at the low of the distribution structure. So bad entry right here at 60.3625, stopped out here at 60.3775, entered again, considering this liquidity here, maybe some buying exhaustion. We have the buying sweeps, we have the absorption by the sellers, and I take another trade here. The trade isn't ready to break down yet. We need a retest here up at these levels for the uptrust. So this is really being impatient at 60.3725, went short there again, stopped out here at 60.3825, right? So coming across here, we get the test back up at the highs, right? So this is a test, sign of strength. We have buyers pushing up here, good volume on the push up. We get the exhaustion, right? We get the iceberg sellers, 21 buy stops. We don't get any buy sweeps, so that was missing from this trade right here, but we already had the buy sweeps come in a lot around the buying climax areas, right? So we're looking for the distribution to start taking place. We have the liquidity on the offer, right, stacked on the top. I enter the trade here. I enter 3 entries. This is 60.3975, 60.3875, and 60.38. So I was kind of confident in this trade. That's why I entered at this level, right? So we have a stop run above the R1 pivot level, which all of this is basically a stop run above these levels, right? So you see all the buy stops coming out, 28.17, 3 of them, 6.115, right? So it's basically stop runs above the R1 level, first upper deviation, creating that resistance from a volume weighted average price perspective. Possible trade back to the VWAP. So entered here, 3 entries. We come down to the automatic reaction level, we consolidate a little bit, and we create this little pop-up here, right? So Let me just open that up. When we consolidate and we break down R1, right? So from the entry, and let me just use the arrows. So those are my entries. Liquidity comes on the offer, right? We push down, we get to the automatic reaction. That's that green line right there. Automatic reaction 60, 35, 50. We start to consolidate. We get some buyers attempting to take it back up. They failed. Sellers come back, automatic reaction, buying exhaustion. See how small those bubbles are, right? We have buy stops coming out, and then we start moving down again, right? So let's see. And my stop for this trade was at 60.4125, right? So let's see, going down. Right, so as we break down from the automatic reaction, we have liquidity on the offer stepping in again, aggressive selling, coming down here to this liquidity area and VWAP. We consolidate a little bit. We have a push up. We create the LPSY, right? So that's the lowest point of supply. That's the liquidity on top there. On the offer, we have 16 buy stops. We have icebergs executing. And then we aggressively sell through this liquidity here at VWAP, right? So all of this liquidity here was kind of stacked, waiting to get taken out, I guess, by probably the buyers who bought initially. They probably placed their stops when they started seeing the distribution taking place. So maybe they wanted to support price at VWAP or just below VWAP, and they got taken out, right? So aggressive selling, broke through VWAP. I could have held this here. This was my initial target, was at this liquidity level here, which was the heaviest liquidity at the time, right? But this was a eval account, a 150k apex eval account. I just needed 9 grand to pass this eval, so this was 9 grand, 62 and 50. So at this point here, I just decided to take the trade off, right? Hold on one second. Right, so I just decided to take the trade off because I already passed the eval. But in a trade situation where, let's say I'm trading a live PA account, I would probably give this some more room to get to my target, or even try and extend my target a little bit because of the aggressive selling. You know what I'm saying? So it was a good trade, quick trade, and I want to just point out this as well. Let's see. This was a ETH trade, so it probably took longer for this trade to materialize than how a usual trade would take place, right? So this trade started at approximately 22.56, or let's see where the entry was here. 22.52, right? So that's 10.52 and ended at 121, right? So basically in an RTH trade, this trade wouldn't take that much time to really materialize. This kind of trade happens, like for me, this breakdown here would happen after my entry, probably within 5 minutes, right? So that's a factor to look at in ETH trades, that they might take longer, like the distribution might take longer because it's just less volume in that situation, right? So yeah, that was the trade right there. Buying climax, test, sell entry, liquidity, volume on the buying climax, volume on the test, buying exhaustion, liquidity stacked on the offer, breakdown, got the target at liquidity, right? So let's pull this across real quick because I have this checklist here as well. Right, so my checklist is Wycoff higher time frame action level, which is going to be this development, and I still haven't changed this this spelling right there. That's wrong, right? So development of Wycoff distribution structure at pivot resistance level, right? So where is R1? Hold on, gotta open this up a little bit. Right, so that's my pivot level. That's the resistance area or the resistance zone, right? So the distribution, hold on, let me just move this across. Right, so the distribution is happening around R1 level, right? And then what else are we looking for? We're looking for liquidity absorbing buyers on the ask or the offer at preliminary supply buying climax, uptrust, and UTAD. We have liquidity absorbing on the buying climax, and around here on the test stepping in, we have stack liquidity as well, right? So high volume buying at buying climax, uptrust, and UTAD. High volume buying, this right here, high volume on the test. Wycoff structure development in upper VWAP deviation bands. First upper deviation, distribution structure happening at +2 VWAP and starting to distribute here. Well, the resistance began at +2 VWAP, dash yellow line. Then the dash yellow line here, that's +1 VWAP. That's where we got the distribution structure and the breakdown to VWAP, right? So let's see what else. Buying exhaustion at buying climax, uptrust, and UTAD around resistance pivot level and or Wycoff higher time frame level. So this is basically saying the same thing as some of these here, right? So we have the distribution at the resistance level, and we have the buying exhaustion. So that's what I was pointing out before. You know, the buying sweeps, the buy stops, heavy volume, not breaking up to the upside. So that's buying exhaustion, right? Volume pressure and volume pressure imbalance buying spikes at buying climax, uptrust, and UTAD. So I actually didn't have my my market pulse on at this time for the buying climax, and I turned it on somewhere around here. So you could see on the test we have the volume pressure imbalance spiking in red from green to red, and all through the distribution after that we have these volume pressure buying spikes that take us nowhere, right? So volume pressure is spiking and the buyers are not going anywhere. They're getting absorbed by the sellers, right? And then short trade entry at buying climax, uptrust, UTAD, and LPSY. So this is basically the uptrust, but the uptrust really is defined by breaking above the buying climax. If it doesn't do that, it's a test or sign of strength, right? So that's why I label it here, test or sign of strength. This is a higher time frame uptrust action. This doesn't pertain to this short entry. This is just a higher time frame uptrust action, right? For this distribution structure, this is a test sign of strength, right? Because it didn't break above the buying climax, which also indicates a lot of selling pressure, right? Because usually we have an uptrust, which is a break above here. It'll probably get resistance at this level, and we could get a trade somewhere at R2 level here, right? But we kind of stuck around R1. And that's basically the trade right there. That's the Black Sun strategy. That's my setup. Pass the eval on this setup here, and yeah, that's it. All right, y'all. So it's MELEK SHALAMAH Trading. Y'all trade safe and stay blessed. Shalom.